Hey, good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us here on the second iFlight Planner for AOPA live stream. My name is Eric Rush. I'm with the AOPA products team. And with me tonight, I've got co-founders of iFlight Planner, Andy Matthews and John Burnside. Andy, John, how you guys doing tonight?
Hey, we're doing great, Eric. How are you?
Doing good, trying to stay out of the heat here a little bit. And that being said, here in Pennsylvania, where I'm located tonight, we are having a thunderstorm, pretty good lightning show outside. So I'm hoping the electric stays on here. So if there's any technical glitches, want to let everybody know that ahead of time. You might just have John and Andy there, but we'll see if this cell passes us here as we get into this. But it wasn't that long ago, back in May, I believe, when we did the first live stream. And it's been a busy few months. And one of the things we know is just from looking at the number of users who are logged into iFlight Planner, the number of flight plans being filed, and all of that user activity, that people are returning to flying. We're seeing that go on a lot more. It's encouraging to see people get out there and start flying again after the sort of shutdown that we all had. Knowing there's still some areas that it's a little, spikes here and there, but in general, we're seeing a lot more activity on the user side of iFlight Planner. But that also says it goes to say that we are seeing a lot of activity on the development side. So behind the scenes, there's a lot of features, different things, development that is going on all at the same time. And I know, John, you've been really busy with some of these features that we're going to be showing here tonight. And there's a lot more coming. So tonight, what the plan is we're going to start off by showing some of the new features. They were also released today, by the way. So these features that we're going to be talking about are live in our production version of iFlight Planner for AOPA. So you can access those right now. We're also going to talk a little bit about some things that are coming in some of the next versions, and then get into a questions and answers period. So we don't have a ton of information to go over tonight, so we want to be thorough enough to get the information out to you. But then a little bit later in the presentation here, we are going to set some time aside, hopefully maybe 15 minutes or so, that we can take some live questions, and we'll give you some answers back to those questions. So with that, let's get started here. We'll dive right in. And Andy, I want to start off with you. I talked just a couple seconds ago about user requested features that I kind of drives sort of what has been going on the development side. And can you fill that in a little bit? I know that's been something that iFlight Planner has really been based on since the inception, and that certainly isn't stopping now. But can you just give a little background on how important that really is?
Yeah, you're right, Eric. It is really important to the development of iFlight Planner. I mean, it has been since the very beginning, and it's going to continue. We knew that when we were transitioning from the legacy flight planner to iFlight Planner, there was going to be a bit of a learning curve, and there was going to be some differences in how pilots and members were used to doing something to how we present things. But with that, we've been able to kind of shift and adjust based on that feedback that we've been getting. The PIC team, the Pilot Information Center, has been fantastic in helping relay a lot of that feedback back to John and myself so that we can let that lead our development priorities. The first one that was right out of the gate that we heard a lot about was the rubber banding functionality. That was a kind of tripped some people up right out of the gate, but it deserved a change. So we've been really fortunate for the amount of feedback that we've gotten. We appreciate it, we welcome it, and like you said, it really drives what we do.
Right. Yeah, and it's funny you say about that rubber banding tool. I managed the legacy flight planner, that AOPA had for, geez, 8 or 10 years, and that tripped me up too. I was so accustomed to how we did it in that old system, and it took me a little bit to get onto that. And that muscle memory is very much there as you transition from one system to another system. And I've always said, learning a new system or learning a new whatever it is hard enough, but unlearning something that you've done for many years sometimes is actually harder. So, yeah, it is good that we were able to return that back to the way a lot of people were familiar. And of course, we don't hear any more about that. So that worked out really well.
Yeah, and what I'll say on top of that too is what was really cool about the way that we approached that from a software development standpoint was not only did we um, add the functionality that allowed the members to use the flight planner the way that they were used to, we obviously had a large member base too before we introduced the partnership with AOPA, and we were able to actually preserve that functionality as well. So
Hmm.
we were able to accommodate and that functionality from both sides, and I thought that was really cool, and a testament to John and the work that he does behind the scenes with the software.
Yeah, John does a great job, and I know we challenge him from time to time, but that's part of the fun in this.
Keeps me on my toes.
Yeah. So let's get into this and talk about some of the new things that our AOPA members can access now. One of those is, iFlight Planner is a little bit different in that there are different levels of it, and that's something that is new to AOPA members. Before, we just had the AOPA Flight Planner, which is powered by Jeppesen. Now there is the iFlight Planner for AOPA, which is included in AOPA member benefits. So that is part of your member benefit. Then there are a core version, which is an upgrade at a discounted price, and there's a premium version. We know that not all users need all the different advanced features that some of these others have. So this is a really good way for people to get what they need and what they expect out of a system based on their type of flying. And the way this was originally rolled out was a little bit different in that, we supported, or AOPA and our pilot information center would support the AOPA version. And if somebody would upgrade, then there was a little bit of a shift there and maybe a little bit of confusion. Well, who do I call now if I have a question? So Andy or John, I'm not sure who wants to field that, but maybe to go into how this now is more of a seamless experience for our AOPA members.
Sure, I'll take it. You really kind of touched on it, though, is that, and we talked about this in the last live stream, is that pilots really span a wide spectrum of how they fly, from your weekend flyers who are only going out when it's blue skies and it's really nice, to your pilots that might be flying 3 or 4 times a week in difficult IFR conditions, and they need more power tools, whether that's georeferenced airport diagrams and approach plates, or you name it. And so it's always a delicate balance. When we talk to members about this and when we have contact messages, we always try and let them know that we're constantly trying to refine our versions to provide the best balance of that, so that we provide options, but we also don't want to be overwhelming. Don't want to provide you a menu that has 300 things on it, and you're like, I don't even know where to start with this. So we do have the 3 versions. Since the last time we talked, I think you'll see on your screen, we've set up a page that really makes it simple to see what the differences are. And you can see iFlight Planner for AOPA, which is included for every AOPA member, but you can also see the additions that upgrading to iFlight Planner Core or Premium bring to the table. And so you can find this page at iflightplanner.aopa.org/AOPA. And once you're there, you'll see that you can review the feature sets for each, decide which works best for you, and there's a button. If you'd like to upgrade from the AOPA version, one click, and you can walk through a simple payment page to do that. And the great thing is now, with this update today, is that those additional feature sets that are in Core and Premium are seamlessly included. So you sign in the same way you've been signing in, and now you have access to enhanced feature sets as well as the integration with iFlight Planner for iPad and iPhone.
Right, and from the support side, our AOPA Pilot Information Center is still providing Tier 1 support. So if you have a question about the core or the premium products, we went through a training session, actually a couple training sessions a few weeks ago, and we had the entire Pilot Information Center in a couple different sessions, and we went through in depth all the different features that are included in both of those premium, the core and a premium version, so they were up to speed on those. So they're the ones that are normally talking to the member, answering the questions. Sometimes I get a Tier 2 question passed to me just to see if it's something internally before we hand it off to iFlight Planner. But we do have a multiple level tier support system to handle the easy questions all the way to the ones that maybe aren't so easy. But right now, your first call to get any of those answers is to AOPA. So we all stay within that kind of environment that you're used to. So one of the other things that came out in this version is not only these, all the brands, or all 3 versions are all housed in the same place, is there was another user requested feature that I was really interested in when I saw this, and I think you're calling it precision time zones. And at first, when I read that, I'm like, precision time zones, and it took me a minute to get my head around it, but it's actually a very, very handy feature. And I know myself, when I used to flight plan a lot of cross-country stuff, and you're going from one time zone to another, or I'm departing out of an area that I don't even know what the time zone is, it can get a little interesting trying to submit the right time, time. Inevitably, you're filing an IFR flight plan. You submitted the wrong time because you didn't even know you're in a different time zone. So
Right.
walk us through kind of, what precision time zones is and how users, go about setting that up and making sure they're using it.
Yeah, and I'll kind of start walking through where users can find that. But I think John, just given the amount of time that this has taken to implement, I think a lot of people will look at this and say time zones, like you were saying, Eric. Like, there's 4 of them in the United States, but when you really start to drill down, there's all the nooks and crannies of different states and different time zones, and there's really some powerful databases that we've been able to integrate with and lean on to be able to make that process of calculating the actual time zone based on that specific airport's latitude, longitude, location has been integrated, and it's pretty powerful. So John, why don't you hop on that one for a second?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, you kind of hit the nail on the head. I mean, nooks and crannies is a good word for it. Phoenix, for example, while in Mountain Time Zone, behaves differently than how Denver or Salt Lake City does. So, not to mention out there, not to get too far down in the weeds programming wise, but there's really 2 sets of time zone. There's the ones that Microsoft kind of puts forth in their software, and then there's a more open source version too, and so we wanted to unify our platform so that everything that's on our apps and our mobile devices works the same as what's on our website. So behind the scenes, we kind of took out the whole underlying work we had done with time zones and dates and times before and completely redid it. So in the interface of our software itself, it's only going to look like a few toggles and switches, but I can certainly tell you there was a lot more behind it than that. So if we go into My Settings, the first thing we did in conjunction with improving our time zone handling was to give you a new setting under My Settings. That's really your time format, and that's right below the time zone there. So I guess number 1, yes, you can look at the time zone and choose that. So the list is different than before, but we took all your past data and make sure we mapped it into the proper time zone so it's correct. But you have 4 different time zones to choose from. We had received feedback that different people have different preferences, whether they want to see it in 24-hour format, local format, or always in Zulu. So we took that feedback. We came up with what we thought were 4 formats that, again, would meet the needs of a broad spectrum of pilots while also giving you choice, but not overloading you. So we certainly encourage you to go to My Settings, to not just for that setting, but all the other ones that are in there as well, to customize your flight planning experience. So that was a lot of work over the last couple of months here to improve that system, but you'll see now once you select that time format that's going to carry you through everything. That's going to carry you through the flight planning interface, your documents. If you have upgraded to Core Premium, it'll carry through to our mobile apps. So you have a more consistent display about time zones and what you're seeing. And we'll show you in a moment here how that really affects the area where you're going to get the most efficiency and improvement from that is when we're selecting and entering a departure date when we're planning a flight.
Okay, so let's get into that then. Let's talk about planning a flight. We can actually do a little bit of a review here for some people who may be new to iFlight Planner and kind of take them through the process. I've seen that in some support tickets, even here as late as last week. People may not be totally familiar with setting that up. How do I get in and plan a flight? So I think what we can do is just show real quickly the real basics, how to take advantage of the time zone in that flight planning part, and then walk into a couple of the other features there.
And I'll kind of bring us right back out. So when we're on aopa.org/iFlightPlanner, you've got 1 or 2 options here. You can go to the Flight Planner home, or you've got this option right here to plan a flight, which is going to take us right into our multi-leg trip planning interface. Now, what you're seeing here is our iFlight Planner premium account. So this has everything that iFlight Planner has to offer. And when this comes up, you can see you see some PIREPs that are on the screen. You see animated radar. This is running off of my AOPA account, actually. And so this is the interface that I like to see. And we have the option to select and save this map presentation by clicking the Save Defaults up here. So however you like your map, whether you want Google Satellite, whether you want sectionals, whatever it might be, you can save this, and every time that you visit iFlight Planner to plan a flight, this is this is how your map setup's going to be. I'll quiet that radar down. Eric, we can see what you're starting to battle over there on near Frederick there on the radar. You can see we've got high res radar on there. But as we were kind of talking about, one of the cool features that iFlight Planner Premium has is the multi-leg trip planning, as well as fuel stops, and that goes back to one of the most requested and asked about features in, say, the last 6 weeks since we rolled out the first update. And here we are, and we're excited to show it. We're excited to demonstrate it, but we're also going to show you too how it integrates with the apps, just to make those multi-legs trips really easy. So let's just plan a quick trip here. We'll grab from Frederick, even though the radar's looking a little hot down there, and given that it's AirVenture week, let's hop up to Oshkosh. Routing method is here in the middle. We're going to select a direct. The ramp fuel, this allows the flight planner to calculate the amount of ramp fuel that we're going to need for this flight. Knowing that we've got the 172 in here, that's a bit beyond its range, but this is by design here so that we can show you how this all works. Once we have those basics in there, we can go ahead and click the planned flight. And what you see on the map now, you see the radar, you see the PIREPs, but you're also seeing a notification here that is just letting us know that the fuel capacity menu pops up. We're going to look for an airport, and we'll just we'll throw it near Midway. And what you're going to see now is that route rubber band was inserted. We get this notification down here in the lower right that our flight has been modified. We're going to go ahead and click that. We're still getting that same notification that we don't have the fuel to complete the flight. So let's figure out how to remedy that. And this is where the power of iFlight Planner Premium really comes in, with the ability to insert these fuel stops. I'm gonna hide this here, and I'm just gonna turn off that radar just for a minute so we can actually see kind of what's happening here. And say we know that we want to stop around the South Bend area, and we see there's a number of airports reporting their METARs, and we're going to assume that some of them have fuel prices. So I'm going to click in that area of that airport, and in the very right-hand corner down here, you see this fuel icon, and it says View Nearby Retail Fuel Prices. So we're going to go ahead and select that, and you're going to see the map. It's going to pop up. It's going to zoom in, and you're going to see a blue circle around that area where you clicked. You can click on any one of these prices. You can see at South Bend, we've got a couple of different options there. We've got here at Plymouth Municipal, we've got one option at $377. We can see the cheapest option here is $368. So this allows to paint a really good picture of what options are available to us. Say we're trying to be as most cost conscious as we can, and we want to stop here at Warsaw. Once we have Warsaw identified here, you can see it up here in the upper right hand corner. I'm going to click this insert trip stop here. I'm going to go ahead and click that. It's going to spin up, and now what you see is we now just have Frederick to Warsaw, and you can see up here in the upper left, we've got Frederick to Warsaw, and we've got Warsaw to Oshkosh, and I can just click on Oshkosh and say, all right, there's my next leg. And from there, assuming we don't want to fly across the lake, we want to skirt the class Bravo around Chicago, we can do a bit of our customizations on how we might want to do that around the area. Same thing, anytime we make it. Go ahead, John.
To reinforce here. So now what that has done is it's split the trip into 2 different flights. And for each of those flights now, you'll be able to walk through the steps of a weather brief, weight and balance, file, documents, etc. Andy, in the map layers menu, let's go ahead and turn on the option to see all legs on the map too. And this is a great feature of iFlight Planner Premium, is that when you're planning a multi-leg trip, you can see all the legs on the map at once. So if you zoom out, you'll be able to see the first and second legs. If you were to click on that route line for the first leg, just as he did in the upper left, he clicked on kind of the breadcrumb, if you will, click on that first leg and it's going to bring you back to that leg as well. And so now you have two independent flights. You're going to have a stop in Warsaw, and you're able to plan all the details for each of those legs.
And there we are. I just changed it from a direct to low altitude airways, if that's what your preference is, so that we can see that show up as well. Thanks for pointing that out, John.
Yeah, go ahead and grab the summary in the upper left too, just so they can see how now, once you have multiple legs planned, the summary is going to show you both of those legs. And you can also pin that summary. So if you want that up the entire time, you could click on the little pin in the upper left corner there that would consistently show that in the planning interface. So those are some kind of little additional tips and tricks that are hidden within here.
Great. So one thing just to interject here, we do know that the graphics quality of the shared desktop here is not the clearest. I've been sort of monitoring this myself in the YouTube feed, and it's a little difficult to see some of that, some of the text on there. So we are working on that back in the studio, but that's part of the, I think the effect of us being in 3 different states here trying to produce something using Skype, in this remote, life that we all live now. So we are working on that. We're aware of that little technical glitch there. We'll see if we can get that quality improved a little bit. So in the meantime, though, Andy and John, you might want to, as you're doing demos on screen, maybe just explain some of what you're looking at there a little bit more, knowing that it's kind of hard to read some of that text. So
yeah,
so
absolutely.
This takes us to the next feature here on the list, and this is one that I'm very excited about. This is actually bringing back a feature that we had in the Legacy Flight Planner from Jeppesen, in being able to work with different EFBs in the market there that people may already have and own and fly with. So I believe the term that you guys came up with is bring your own EFB. I really like that. That's very clever. So why don't we, and it's a little bit different implementation than what we did in the Jet Planner. You actually have, since we have iFlight Planner for iPhone and iFlight Planner for iPad, you actually had a more graceful way of actually doing this. And it's also a way to give yourself a backup EFB in the cockpit at the same time. So why don't we go into that and show how we can actually send, and also talk about which of the EFBs are currently supported. And I did say currently. We'll talk a little bit on the Android side of things. I know we're already getting that question here about the Android EFBs, and we do have something to talk a little bit about here in a little bit that I think everyone will be interested in. But let's talk about bring your own EFB.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to go ahead and save this trip. We've finished our flight planning. We can see it show up in our trip list here. And now what I'm going to do, assuming all technology continues to work as we hope it will, I'm gonna mirror up the iPad here to the computer. Here we go. All right.
So just so you're aware what Andy's looking at here, this is iFlight Planner for iPad, which is available in the App Store. As a Core and Premium member, you can download it and sign in and have complete access to this integrated data, which Andy's going to now show you how that data that we just planned that trip is going to show up in your iPad app.
So in the app, anytime you open up the app, if it's been closed or when you're in the app, there's a button right here at the very top that says sync. I'm going to go ahead and tap sync here. It's going to search the server for any new flights that have been planned. We're going to get a notification that says, everything's been updated and synced. And you can see in this upper right-hand corner, those 2 flights that we just planned from Frederick to Warsaw and from Warsaw up to Oshkosh have been downloaded seamlessly into the app. Another point to make too, those time zone settings that we set earlier, you can see now that those are all displayed in there as well. So consistency throughout. We're talking about the bring your own EFB. We can set that in settings. There's a settings option, and scrolling down a little bit, you'll see the bring your own EFB option. The ones that we are currently supporting on iOS are ForeFlight, Garmin Pilot, Flight Plan Go, FlyQ, WingX, and a pair of the Jeppesen apps. So say we're flying with Garmin Pilot here. We're just going to select the Garmin Pilot in the Bring Your Own EFB section. In the upper right-hand corner, we're going to say Done, and that's going to be saved. So right from this home screen now, I'm going to tap this Frederick to Warsaw flight. I'll wait for that to catch up here for a minute. And there we go. So there's Frederick to Warsaw.
And
Now,
one thing you'll notice, just real quick, Andy,
right.
just to point out, is you'll notice is that we really make an effort to make our app interfaces look very much like our web interface, so the experience is very similar. So if you do use our EFB, that a lot of the buttons, a lot of the menus, everything have a lot of similarities, so you know where to find the features and tools that you're looking for.
Yeah, exactly, and that's you know, this just the same way in the app as you do in iFlight Planner for AOPA. Another question right out of the gate was, how do I access that planner console? And just like you do on the web, you tap Planner in the top center and it'll pop down. We're getting a little bit of a delay here on the network, so kind of be patient with us here, but that's how that works. There it is. And while that's up, the common iOS share icon, that box with the arrow pointing up, based on that setting we set, we can tap that, and it's just going to give me a quick error here because we don't have Garmin Pilot installed on this iPad. But what it'll do is it would automatically open that up.
So the whole idea is, if we understand that iFlight Planner was so new to a lot of AOPA members a couple months ago when we introduced iFlight Planner for AOPA, and we certainly know that a lot of you already had a preferred EFB and a subscription. And so our goal, again, as we talked about earlier, is to give you the choice to choose the tools that are best for you in the cockpit. We don't want to overwhelm you, but we certainly want to provide those options that are available. So now you can use iFlight Planner for AOPA on the web to plan, as well as seamlessly, without having to email or without having to copy and paste, is get that information into your EFB for in-flight usage.
Now, one question that just came in, I was watching the chat here, and while we're still on this subject, I know you guys had to release a new version of iFlight Planner for iPad and iFlight Planner for iPhone. Are they in the stores yet, or the people can upgrade, because they will need to upgrade to that to use this feature?
Yes, they are both in the App Store as of earlier today as part of the overall release of the updated software. So most people on their iPad and iPhone will have automatic updates on, and they should see it already. If they don't, they can certainly search iFlight Planner in the App Store. The best way to tell that you have it is to go to the Help tab in the app and look for the version number in the upper right, and you should see 4.5.0. That's the latest version as of today, and that'll let you know for sure that you have the updates with both the time zone enhancements that we talked about, as well as the Bring Your Own EFB capability.
Great. That's very good. So yeah, so that, just to reiterate, and I'm seeing a few questions in here, iFlight Plan, if you have Core or you have Premium version, so that is step one, is you do need to have one of those two upgraded versions of iFlight Planner. You will have access to the iFlight Planner for iPad and iFlight Planner for iPhone, which are EFBs. They will work offline, just like ForeFlight or Garmin Pilot or any other EFB that you may be familiar with. You download the databases just exactly the way you would on any of those devices, and you now have a fully functional EFB that you can use while flying without an internet connection. So the AOPA version is your online version, and then you would have the EFB version of iFlight Planner if you have one of the Core or Premium upgraded, licenses or subscriptions, I should say. So, so that is just to clarify a little bit on that. The other question we're getting a lot, and it's probably a good a time of any to talk about it, is what about the Android side? I know just from working with the legacy flight planner we had, Jepson, we did support a couple Android EFBs, but the method to do that is completely different than how iOS works from the technical side. It's not nearly as easy or as graceful. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what we can expect and what we're going to be able to support? And take this with a grain of salt. Nothing is, I don't normally like to talk about vaporware, but feeling pretty good about this. So why don't you just give a little bit of a glimpse into the future here?
Yeah, we first and foremost, we just want to address, we know there is a huge and passionate Android base out there. And so we are constantly looking at ways to make sure that they have the same choices that people who have an iPad or iPhone have. And so, yes, it was a relatively easy thing to do technically to allow to push flight plans on an iOS device to another iOS application, especially ones that have enabled that. It's a little bit different technical approach for Android, but that doesn't mean that we're not interested in doing it. We've reached out to multiple Android developers. I can say with their permission that the guys at Adventure Pilot and who make iFly GPS are very interested in making this happen. So we're talking with them about that. So certainly keep your eyes and ears open for the next set of announcements from AOPA, from iFlight Planner about where we're going with that. But it is our ideal to give you great web-based planning and then a seamless connection down into the cockpit, whether that's your choice of iOS or Android device. So bear with us, and we know that that's a feature that a lot of people are interested in and excited about, and we will keep you posted on the progress on that.
Yeah, that's great news. Yeah, we do get that a lot. I know iFly GPS is very popular on the Android side. I've talked with those guys, several times about how we can work together. So I'm glad to see that there's something happening there. And I'm sure, I know they're very eager to work with us on this. So I'm sure that will happen. That's why I said I feel pretty good about that actually coming to fruition. Yep. So all good things there. Yes. So what else in the next versions coming up before we get into some of the Q&A and things like that? What are some of the other features? And then we talked about some other features, and we're getting some users who are asking us to bring back a couple of the legacy features even from the old planner.
Certainly. I think the top feature at this point, and again, this is all rooted in member feedback, a lot of this came out of the last live stream we did, is really the kneeboard format on the navlog and reformatting that in a way that's a little more familiar to them. Just like Andy talked about with rubber banding, is that there was a way they were used to it, and unlearning it, as you mentioned, Eric, is challenging. And a lot of times it's not even the right thing. It's just a matter of we needed to make some improvements in the navlog. So that's something that's already in the works, is an updated document format to allow you to use that. We'll keep the old one too, so that users that are used to that and are happy with that can use that as well. But that's really one of the big projects for the next update, is to give you a kind of ideally a unified kind of flight document where we can pull the kneeboard format as well as PDFs and other things together and continue to simplify that part of the process. Obviously, a ton of pilots fly with iPads and Android devices and digital devices these days, but inevitably something might happen, and we know that many pilots still print those documents. So we want to create those in the easiest process possible to email those to yourself and to have those handy when you need them.
Very good. Yes, I know that was something that a lot of people really did, in the legacy planner, and I do applaud that to have that backup piece of paper with you when you're flying. I fly with two iPads, believe it or not. I mean, I have a full-size iPad and an iPad mini that mounts on the panel. I've had them both shut down. Go into thermal protection, real hot day, and just the sun beating in the canopy, and they both shut down. For a minute you're like, well now what? Remember that, and I heard my instructor singing in my ear, fly the plane. So, and then this is an airplane that has a WAAS GPS in the panel, has another Garmin portable GPS hanging off the windscreen. So it's not like I didn't know where I was at, but just having those two things that we've become to rely on so heavily anymore, just having both of those go away, just was a little bit of a shock. So yeah, having the paper, that usually always works. You don't have to worry about any kind of electronic problems, or battery problems, or heat problems with that. So yeah, that'll be a great feature to bring back.
Yeah, I think I would put that, and the Android project would be 1 and 2, or 1A and 1B on our list. We know those have been the most popular questions asked.
Great, great. Okay, is there anything else you wanted to show before we get into the questions and answers here?
I do want to jump back into the planning interface real quick, because we kind of skipped over how the date and time enhancements work in there. And there's a couple little power tips I think that we could show real quick. So Andy, if you could go back to just plan a flight, that would be great.
We're waiting on the network. There we go.
There we go. Okay. Okay, so when you first come in here, let's close out here and let's start with a fresh flight. So we'll use the X in the upper right to save and close. And then we'll use our friendly green button to plan a new flight. So as I mentioned earlier, there's not a ton of interface changes, but there's definitely a ton behind the scenes, and we think there's a lot of value there. So when you look at the departure date on the screen, and I know it might be hard for some to see, but it's at the lower right, or lower left, I'm sorry, of the box. And by default, that's going to be about 20 minutes from now in your home time zone. That's where it'll always default to. But so if you go ahead and click that open, you can always set your departure date. And the change you'll see here is before there was a box to select your time zone, which wasn't great. We knew that had room for improvement. And instead, this is where the time zone enhancements have come into play. So now if you were to go ahead and put in a departure location, so let's just take Phoenix, for example, Andy. And as soon as he selects that, you're going to see now that the departure date has changed to Mountain Standard Time. It's automatically detecting that from your departure. It's automatically adjusting your time based on that. If you wanted to see what time that was in Zulu, you could click the toggle there, and it's going to switch over to that as well. So you have the option there, but the auto time zone detection of your departure airport, while nothing crazy from a visual standpoint, is nice. It's just it's easier than what it was before. So, and if for any reason your departure location changed, that would automatically update with it. So I just wanted to highlight that little new piece.
Yeah, that's really a good way to show what's actually happening whenever you do select a different departure that's in a different time zone, that you don't really have to think about it. It's just the program's smart enough to say, oh, that's Mountain Time. Here you go.
Exactly. The other thing is just a little power tip here. When you're entering, if you know you have a departure date, so say you're going to depart on August 1st. So rather than typing 8/1/2020, you can simply type 0801. And then hit tab, and it'll auto format it for you. The same is true in the time box. So if you know you're leaving at 8 a.m., you don't have to type out 8 a.m. Just type 8 and hit tab, and it'll auto format that for you as well. So save you some keystrokes there with little shortcuts about how you can enter your date and time. That's true. Nice. You can also enter 24-hour time. So you could enter 2200, and it'll know that that's 10 o'clock.
Excellent. Nice, very nice features. I think we should probably have a little tips and tricks for the power users. Maybe we can integrate that in somehow for all these quick little keyboard shortcuts that you can do in the app. So let's jump into it. We've got quite a few questions in here, and we want to leave a little bit of time here. So let's talk about some of these. We don't have enough time to get to all of these. I do apologize, but certainly you can always contact our Pilot Information Center if you do have questions. They'd be more than happy to answer those for you and get you some more information. But let's take some of these here. There's one, I'm going to combine a couple of these. They're very similar. One person, or a few people are saying, so does iFlight Planner replace ForeFlight, replace WingX? Does it replace these EFBs they may be familiar with?
Ideally, I would say yes.
We're biased there, but
we're going to be greatly biased here. But yeah, we certainly believe in the product that we've built. We built the web interface first, and we launched that in 2010. 6 weeks later, Steve Jobs introduced the iPad, which changed everything in aviation. And so, having never developed an app before, we were kind of like, all right, we have to learn a whole new world here. But it actually set us up we have a web-based interface where you can do all this online planning from your 24-inch monitor at your office or home. And then we have the feature-rich EFBs that go with that. So yes, it's certainly our intent is for you to have an alternative to those other options. And we'd love for you to keep sending us your questions, and if you want to know how things work to see if this can be your replacement, we're going to be here and happy to help answer those questions and point you in the right direction. We also know there's a ton of features, just as a couple we just showed, that are hidden just below the surface. And so you might not think at first that, oh, well, this can't do X or it can't do Y. If you think it can't, just let us know. Send a question to the Pilot Information Center or iFlight Planner directly, and we'd be happy to help point you in the right direction.
Great. Yeah, and there was another question just about iFly GPS and if that's going to be part of the, bring your own EFB. And certainly, as we talked before, that is the hope. We're talking with them. I know you guys have had a conversation with them. They're eager to work with iFlight Planner. iFlight Planner is eager to work with those. So we do believe that you will start to see at least iFly GPS on the Android side, that you'll see that one come in. And then hopefully we'll have a few other Android devices, EFBs that we can talk about. So yes, the intent is there, and it always was there to support the Android side. It's just, iOS side tends to be a little easier on some things to introduce. I think a lot of times that's why you see things appear on iOS and iPads sooner sometimes than Android. Not that Android's a bad, platform at all. It's just it's two different techniques, two different methods to actually make the same thing happen. So they tend to not happen together. So yes, that isn't absolutely the hope. There's another question here. This is actually a good one, and I've tried to I've had a few conversations with our Pilot Information Center. This person says, "Hey, I'm an AOPA member. It does the basic version, the one that's included with my membership. Can I install that on my iPhone? Or do I have to upgrade to use an iPhone?" So this is where we start to draw the line a little bit between an installed app, which is the core or the premium version, or just using the web-based version of iFlight Planner. I actually created an icon on my iPhone that just goes to the web-based version. It is what's called a fully responsive site, which means it will pattern itself, it will fit itself to whatever screen size it has to work with. So we talked about the app. So John or Andy, could you just talk a little bit about can you use the basic version? You do need an internet connection, but can you use that basic version on an iPhone?
Absolutely, and you nailed it. It is what's called the technology buzzword is responsive design. Probably a simpler phrase for it is mobile-friendly design. So the interface that we've been showing you here that you see on the screen now with the planner console and the map and all that, if you were to open that up and go to iflightplanner.aopa.org, or easier yet, aopa.org/iflightplanner, on your phone or on your mobile device, and that's true on an Android device too, you can use it on any mobile device. It's really built for modern web browsers, and those exist on devices of all sizes these days, including your computer. So you absolutely can use it you can't install it, and you won't have the offline data like you do with a native app that you would install on your phone or on your iPad or your Android device. But you can absolutely use it from any web browser on any modern device.
Right. So, and I was doing that as a test. I mean, I have it on my, I don't have the core premium version. I just have the basic AOPA version of iFlight Planner. And I have an icon I actually put on my desktop. So it kind of looks like an app. Or on my phone. It sort of looks like an app, although it does need the internet to run. But I was able to plan a flight. I was able to get a briefing, file a flight plan, everything I needed to do. The caveat, just knowing that I needed an internet connection to do that. So it's not something you want to take into the air and go fly with, unless you are flying lower than 1,500 feet AGL and you've got a lot of good cell towers around you, but I certainly wouldn't trust it to that. So yeah, that's good clarification on that one. That yes, you can use this on your iPhone. And it will adjust itself to that size. So another question, we've gotten this a couple times in the Pilot Information Center. This is a good place to talk about it. Speaking of the iFlight Planner for iPad and for iPhone, this is the app now, the EFB. What ADS-B in, the portable ADS-B in devices are supported?
Sure. I'm not sure I can name them all off the top of my head. We've tried to make a point of integrating with as many as possible. There's over 15 different devices that I think are supported. Andy, I'm not sure if you have that list handy there. If you could help me out on this one. I can't remember them off the top of my head.
I do, yeah. We've got the devices from Dual, the XGPS series. We've got Stratus 3 and Stratus 3i. devices from Level. I know a lot of members use the StratUx platform as well. So kind of some of the some are home built, if you will, but L3 Links, an installed version, we're fully compatible with them, and UAvionics are a few others. When you do get in the app, you just go to settings, and there's a full list of those, and those will show up right on your home screen. And each one has an integrated connectivity status page where you can see all the data coming in at real time.
The other note that I'd make there real quick is if there is a device that you already have and are interested in having work in iFlight Planner, please reach out to us and the manufacturer of your device. We would certainly like to integrate more. Obviously, there are some manufacturers at times that have been protective of which software they integrate with, but the more they hear from you about being interested in having iFlight Planner for AOPA and iFlight Planner for iPad and iPhone work with their device, the more momentum that's behind that, the easier it is for us to create that implementation. So certainly we don't want you to shut it down if it's not immediately available. Please reach out to us and let us know that you'd like to have it available in the app.
Yeah, and that's an important. We ran into that too with the legacy planner. A lot of people said, "Well, we want you to integrate with this company, or we want you to integrate with this device, or whatever it happened to be." And any of these integrations tend to be two-way streets. Both parties have to be willing to sit at that table and go through the integration. There's usually work on both sides, and sometimes the work that's required to do these integrations maybe not aligned to their current workload and their schedule of what they're trying to get out and one or the other. So it's always a little bit challenging on the software, on the development side, to get two parties to work together at the time that they both need to work together. But the users, the people out who are using those products can really help that. We had that a lot where a lot of our AOPA members would contact whoever it was, iFly, or whoever their preferred vendors they wanted us to work with, and also voice that request to them equally as us. So just because it was like we would love to integrate with iFly, but we can't necessarily do that without their participation in that. So yes, definitely contact both the ones you'd like to see together, and hopefully we can get to the table and work through that.
And I know that some of the bigger companies are protective of their ecosystems, and I understand that. We understand that from a business standpoint, but certainly popular demand can push that in the right direction sometimes. So if there is something you're interested in, we'd love to hear about it, and certainly appreciate if you reach out to them and let them know that you're interested as well.
Yeah, and that actually touches on a question that just came in here about, hey, what about the Garmin ADSB, in devices, and I know Garmin is definitely one of those companies that likes to keep they're all chickens inside that same little fence area there. They aren't necessarily always open to working with other devices. And a lot of that I understand from the technical side of why it's important to protect that, not just because there's privacy issues, but they control it. They have a lot more control, and they can generally create, a little bit more stable products sometimes doing that. So yeah, Garmin tends to be a little bit more closed off than some of the other ones.
I would say, though, for them, though, in fairness to them, that Garmin's a large company, so everybody and anybody who's writing any software app of any kind for aviation or any other thing that they work with, well, let's get integrated with Garmin because that'll get our name up there with Garmin's name. And so I can understand why Garmin's protective of that at times, too, because they can't run out and integrate with every last person because, as you just said, Eric, there is effort on their side of it, too. But if it comes down to it and they're hearing from members of the aviation community that have purchased their avionics panels or their ADSB devices, and they're interested in it, then they're going to be willing to talk, and they have been. It's just a matter of when is the timing right for everybody. So we certainly understand where they're coming from too.
Right. Yep. Yeah, they all have roadmaps. We have at AOPA, we have product roadmaps that are planned out sometimes a year out. And certain things have to happen before other things happen. So to try to get everybody to meet up at that exact time that we need it sometimes doesn't always work out. There's another question here. How up to date are airport closings? So I assume this is probably talking about more like the briefing or possibly NOTAMs, that may be in a system. So we want to handle, kind of talk about, how recent those are and how that works.
Sure. There's a couple levels to it. Every 28 days, we pull in a complete updated data cycle from not only the FAA, but numerous data sources. So that, number one, is if the FAA's official data that they're producing and sharing is updated. For example, we had a pilot last week that was trying to plan from KORC. It's closed permanently. It's still in the FAA database, and it showed closed permanently, which is why you can't plan to or from it. But so we show that data, and it shows right on the airport page, if you were to pull it up on our website, that it is closed permanently. So as soon as that official FAA data is updated, it's updated in our system as well. Now, there are more timely events too, which are NOTAMs. And so Andy has a weather brief open there. There's multiple ways to get to NOTAMs in our systems. Number one, it would be a weather brief. You can pull that if it's part of your route. You'd be able to see all that information. There are key points like closed are highlighted in red there, and you can see that. The other way to get there is if you say you were on the map and you wanted to see NOTAMs for your departure airport. You could simply click on the balloon that is your departure airport, and it's going to pull up that airport information page right in the middle of your screen there. And there's a NOTAMs tab, so you can always access it right here as well. So there's a couple of really easy ways to get at, and those are updated incrementally every, I think, 3 minutes, I want to say. We pull incremental updates on those. So those are real time out of official FAA data systems.
Great. One other question here. I think this will probably be our last question before we wind it down here to keep this right below an hour. Actually, two. We will clarify one here. I might have missed this question earlier, but somebody was asking about being able to print out the Navlog, PDF. Yes, that is coming. Just in case you've joined late, that is something we're hoping for the next version, that will have a printable Navlog that you can print that out with the rest of the documents to like a kneeboard format. So yes, that is something that's being worked on. The other one,
real quick on that one, Eric, before you go. It is printable now. It's just a matter of what the format is. And so, as Andy showed you there, you went to the doc screen and you can click on the flight document. That would open it up and allow you to print your flight documents there. You can also do it if you were to click on, if you were to close that screen, Andy, the flight document window, and click on Navlog right at the middle top screen and pop that down. There's a little printer icon right there. Open that up, and that's going to open up just the Navlog by itself for print purposes. So if you just want to print the Navlog while you're planning a flight, that's the easiest way to do it, is from the Navlog drop down at the top. So it's just a matter of us adding an additional format that would be a kneeboard style that people have asked for. So a little bit adjusted from what the visual look of it is, but certainly you can currently print your Navlog as well.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying that. Sometimes I get wired into the PDF kneeboard and forget that, yes, you can certainly print this one out. One other, in this, Andy, we'll probably need a demo on the map. So just to spin you up a while we're reading a question.
Sure.
Person is asking, in the Legacy Flight Planner, the JEP one we had, I could click on special use airspace in the low IFR map and then see the altitude limits of that special use airspace. And can I do that in iFlight Planner?
The answer is yes. And so what I'm going to zoom in here and try and get this Class Bravo around the Detroit area centered on the screen for us. Similar to how we did it before with finding fuel prices in the area, we've got that fuel price icon in the lower right hand corner. I'm going to click on this airspace at location. It looks like the Class E extension down here at the bottom. And what that's going to do is give me an airspace menu pop up on the right side of the screen, but then also highlight those shapes on the map. And now what I can do up here in the right side, we can see the surface area of Detroit, surface to 10,000. When I hover on that area, it will actually highlight it. So if you look right in the middle of the Class Bravo while I scroll my mouse up here, you can see those highlighting and de-highlighting. So the same thing works with each shelf. And while we're on this topic, Eric, let me zoom out here, and I'll just I'm gonna grab a TFR if I can. I'll just get into the DC area. I'm gonna click in there. I'm gonna do the same thing on the airspace. Now, in addition to using the base area. Let me move this over so we can see it. We got the TFR, we got all the class Bravo around the Washington DC area, but then also as it relates to the TFR, there's an icon up here in the upper right, and we can click on that to get the actual airspace definition. Now I realize it's going to be difficult or maybe impossible to read that, but that's how that works. You've got a couple of options. Then when you're done, you can hide this menu on the right side by clicking the hide button. Or if we said we're done, I'm going to go ahead and just click done, and it'll clear it off the map.
And so just a reinforcement of how that tool works, Eric. Once you click and ask for airspace at a location, we show you all the known airspace vertically above that location. So that includes airmets and SIGMETs, that includes TFRs, class airspace, special use airspace, you name it. Anything that our system knows about that is vertically above that is going to come up. You can also use the map layers menu that Andy just opened if you wanted to turn on certain types across the country. And as he showed you earlier in the live stream, the save default. So if you knew you always wanted restricted airspace on, you could turn that on and hit save defaults, and every time you open your planning interface, that's going to be there.
Great. Excellent. Okay, well, we're just before 9 o'clock here on the East Coast. John, I know you've been up since about 3 in the morning pushing out this new version, so you're probably looking for an earlier evening here. So we're going to wind it down. This is something we are going to continue. We apologize for the graphic situation we had tonight. Sometimes, technology does not always cooperate, especially when we're all working from home and doing, business the way we're doing business in this day and age. So we apologize that we'll try to work on that. Sometimes it's just beyond our control, and it's just, as the luck would have it, whenever technology decides to go out. It was working perfectly fine earlier when we were testing, and then of course we go live and things just happen. So what's that? I think Murphy's Law, is that what it's called? So anyway, we'll wind it down. We are going to continue these iFlight Planner live streams. We'll probably try to do one around every type. We have a major release where we're introducing new features. So we're going to try to get some sort of cadence around that to bring this to you. If you have questions in the meantime, please feel free to contact our Pilot Information Center. They're a great group of guys. They'd be more than happy to, and gals, they'll be more than happy to answer your questions and walk you through any questions you do have. So for myself, for Andy, John, and back in the Frederick studio, Warren Morningstar, we certainly could not have done this without his help pushing all the buttons back there. We wish everyone have a great night, and we'll talk to you soon.